What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the NFL Live Before Lock for Sunday Night Football. I'm Eric Lindquist. Excited to be talking a little Pittsburgh Steelers, Baltimore Ravens. We're going to have a hard-hitting defensive football game. Something like that. I don't know. Something that was ridiculous. But I got my guy, Neil Orfield. He's also depressed. What? How do we even do an intro? How do we even do a show together right now after what our Vikings just did to us?
I don't want to because fantasy football didn't go well. The DFS didn't go well. Best ball didn't go well. The Vikings got absolutely slaughtered by our rival. It was not a fun day. I don't know how we're going to get through this. Just got to be honest up front, right?
Whiskey. I was like, I'll have a little whiskey.
That was a good idea. I should have poured some whiskey. Now we'll get through. We'll be okay.
That was legitimately the dumbest thing that I've ever seen. We've got Nick Mullins in there throwing touchdowns to KJ Osborne. So at least the defensive slappies are absolutely in shambles. No, they're not. They had 26 points coming into that. The Green Bay just set that entire thing on fire. People want to talk NBA. No NBA. Oh, if you guys want to super chat us some NBA questions, I am playing some lineups there on this 3-gamer. Bradley Beal out, Giannis Antetokounmpo out. Going to be a wild one there, but we're going to primarily be covering this massive football game with playoff implications. We have the Ravens, we have the Steelers, and we're both depressed after this main slate. I have some good stuff going in the afternoon slate, not because of Jared Stidham, but because I have Adams and Jacobs more than the average bear. Josh Jacobs, 2%, seemed like a lot of fun with Zamir White out. But anything else you want to talk about on this main slate, or do we just move on because we're just in shambles?
We're in shambles. Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping for overtime in this Niners-Raiders game, as I assume, sounds like you are too. You got some guys in this game, but it's looking like the Niners are just about to kick a field goal and end the game. So kind of a bummer there. Yeah, we can move on and talk about this fun night slate. This is probably, that's the other thing. This game is probably the worst game to put. I mean, I know this got playoff implications, but from a fantasy perspective, just not a lot of fun here. But we'll make it fun by talking some showdown. We'll find some good plays in Showdown to play here.
Overtime. That seems nifty. Ayuk just went over 100. Also seemed important.
Oh, he missed. Wow.
He missed it.
Did not see that coming.
Watching. That was wild. So we're going to have one football game to be paying attention to, and it ended up being a shootout. 41.5. I'm out here in Arizona with my dad. He took the over. So congratulations to my dad on that $20 victory. What a stud. What an absolute stud. But let's get to this Sunday night football game that we have before us. We go position by position on this one. And yes, I will talk a little bit about the NBA slate. If you guys really, really want to, I can find moments too, because I'm building lineups for it. I know a lot of you guys are building lineups for it. It's interesting having all the games lock at the same time in 40 minutes here, but we have lock in 55 minutes here coming on the NFL side. Shout out to Tyler Zander there behind the virtual glass, doing a great job per usual. My guy wearing a Ferrari jacket. How rich.
So that's makes me feel happy. It's not a Ferrari jacket. It's Andrew Schultz's comedy tour. Just looks like Ferrari, so it worked.
That's intentional. That's symbolism. That's like the thing that he's going for. Interesting.
Absolutely.
Well, anyway, let's party, shall we? Let's go to the trenches. Over under 35 here in the Pittsburgh Steelers visiting Baltimore Ravens football game. Just a 1-point spread, depending on which book you're looking at. It's a pick'em, virtual pick'em here. Anything that you want the people to know before we start diving in position by position like we always do?
No, I mean, I think we've got two pretty good running quarterbacks here, so that's kind of fun. Having quarterbacks have a little bit of upside on the ground makes it sort of interesting. But yeah, it's got a low total, not expecting a lot of scoring here, so could be a defensive battle. We can probably play those defenses, kickers. I don't think I have any overarching. It's just a regular old showdown slate. Nothing too unique about this one.
Well, I mean, normally when you have like the Lamar Jackson, we talk about, do we want to fade a 50% captain,
right?
Lamar Jackson, and Tyler Huntley is basically Lamar Jackson light, where they kind of have this same skill set. We're still kind of looking at the same guys. And I think that makes it a very interesting slate here because we can try to talk leverage. We can try to talk other things, but let's start with the road team. Kenny Pickett here on the road. He's played better of late. I mean, it wouldn't be that difficult to play better than what he had been in the early going, but small-handed Kenny Pickett out there throwing footballs. He's 9,200 on the DraftKings slate. Makes all the sense in all the land. 15,000. He is actually on FanDuel, your highest known active player, which is kind of wild to talk about there. But how do you feel about Kenny Pickett on tonight's slate?
Yeah, I mean, we always talk about it's a quarterback on a one-game slate. Hard not to have some interest there, especially when the quarterback has some rushing upside. We're not expecting a lot of scoring, but we know the quarterback is going to have the ball in his hands. Yeah, I've got interest in Kenny Pickett, and just looking at our single game showdown tool, he's got positive leverage both in the captain spot and in the utility spot, projecting for 11% captain ownership, 13% chance to be an optimal there. In the util, projecting for 47% ownership, 53% chance to be an optimal there. I like Kenny Pickett quite a bit. I don't think that I'm playing him in the captain spot naked. I want to have at least one pass catcher with him always in the captain spot, despite some rushing upside. I don't think he has enough that he's going to be optimal in the captain spot without bringing somebody along for the ride. I think you could play him in the flex though, without any pass catchers potentially, and hope for a rushing spike week, maybe score a touchdown there,
or a drop off to Najee, something of that sort.
Yeah.
I mean, he's technically a pass catcher, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
just not.
I do include Najee Harris among those pass catchers, but I'm just pulling up his Pro Football Reference. I want to look at what his how the rushing is going since the last time I looked. So he started 10 games this year. He's only rushed for 234 yards, so that's 23.4 yards per game, but 3 touchdowns in there as well. Yeah, I think you could play him in the flex without a pass catcher. Still, more likely in more of my lineups where I have Kenny Pickett, I'm going to want at least one pass catcher in there with him, which would include Najee Harris. But I think he's at least viable without a pass catcher. He's not like a complete statue out there.
Yeah, no, he's definitely not that. I do like stacking him up for Rainmaker purposes. I am very much cheering for him to be optimal. That would be awesome. I don't really have a path where I can get to a lot of Tyler Huntley cards without spending a fortune for a team that he probably will not be the quarterback of starting next week, or for sure week 1 of the playoffs is what it sounds like. So Tyler Huntley, this Baltimore team is automatically in the playoffs. Kenny Pickett here on the other side makes a lot of sense to be rostering here in a must-win kind of spot. But Tyler Huntley, that is kind of the thing where we don't have to worry about, bubble wrapping Tyler Huntley if you're the Baltimore Ravens. And Lamar Jackson is coming down the pipeline for the playoffs. That is kind of your game plan. So why not unleash this dude? He's 9,400 with rushing upside on DraftKings.com, the most positively leveraged player to get to in both the captain spot and the utility spot, which I find very interesting because there's a lot of ways to stack him up. And you might even run him solo in some spots. How you feeling about Huntley on today's slate?
Honestly, it's very similar. Tyler Huntley, I probably not playing him solo in the captain spot. I think that he is viable to play solo in the utility. He has started 3 games this year. He's rushed for 113 yards and a touchdown. So has shown some rushing upside. So yeah, very, very similar to Kenny Pickett. Probably not playing him in the captain spot without any pass catchers. I think he's viable in the utility spot without any pass catchers. And similarly, I like him quite a bit. I mean, both these guys, they're quarterbacks on a one-game slate, and they have positive leverage in our tools, going a little bit under-owned. So yeah, sign me up for some Tyler Huntley as well.
Can you do a little ASMR for the people? Can you tell them, can you get right up next to your mic and just be like, hey, baby doll? And then maybe crumple the microphone a little bit?
I don't watch ASMR videos. Like, I am kind of familiar with what it is.
Can you stroke the mic a little bit for me? Can you just pet it?
Can you hear that?
Oh yeah.
You can.
And now just say you're live at 93.2.
I never understand. Like once out of every 10 shows, people come on and they're like, "Why is Neil so quiet?" I'm like, I have no idea. My mic volume is the same as it always is.
Hey Neil, follow my lead on this. Follow my lead. Yeah. Follow me, okay? Just say, you're watching Stokastic Live at 97.6.
That is beautiful. You have a beautiful voice for.
No, you do it. The people want you.
Let's move on and talk about some running backs, wide receivers.
Let's talk the tools quick. Let's talk the tools because Tyler Huntley, 8.2% leverage. I mean, this is wild. What are the different ways you're using? Like, I know that you have all the rules. You have the best videos in terms of Showdown out of anybody in the industry. And if you're not watching those routinely, you're doing it wrong. How are you planning to utilize Tyler Huntley here when it comes to like captain? Are you thinking about maybe solo captaining him up there? Is that something that's remotely considerable on this kind of a slate? Because it's not something I thought about doing with the QB period this entire year until now.
So I don't think that I'm going to on this slate. Yeah, I think that
Okay.
it is viable. Like you could do it. I understand why you're thinking about it. I don't think that I'm going to in my lineups. I'm going to require at least one pass catcher, but I think that it's kind of a situation where you could go either way. You could certainly play him naked. I'm willing to play him again naked in the flex. Both of these quarterbacks, I have the same rules. I'm willing to play them naked in the flex. I'm not willing to play them naked at captain just because I don't know that they really have the upside for. Maybe they do 100 yards and a touchdown. Maybe that is within the realm of possibility for these guys. We haven't really seen it this year. If you think that's a possibility, 100 yards and a touchdown, then certainly you can play them in the captain spot, especially in a low scoring game without any pass catchers. I think I'm more inclined to have a pass catcher, and it's more likely that they're going to be optimal if they're also throw in a good amount and bring in a receiver along with them. But yeah, I think it's viable. It's not like again, it's not like these are statue quarterbacks. They're both decent rushing quarterbacks, and they have shown some rushing upside with touchdowns and yardage. So I think it's viable, but not the way I'm playing. I'm playing them with one pass catcher in the captain spot, and then could play them naked in the flex.
Yeah, I mean, the main reason I'm thinking about it is you've seen 88. Okay, so 4 starts we've had with Tyler Huntley. He has not gone over 187 passing yards in any of them. And in the last 3, 2 of the 3 of which Baltimore's won, and this has kind of been their recipe of success, was just defensive football. 88, 138, and 115 yards passing. 2 of those games, 12 and 17 pass attempts. In that same span, the man has rushed 9 or more times in 3 of 4 games. So for me, it's kind of like if I look at Tyler Huntley and his upside, I'm pretty sure it's coming on the ground or in a negative game script. And yeah, it's a close spread at home. So can't be too surprised if it gets wonky or something where Baltimore does have to come from behind and he throws it 30 times like we saw in week 15 it was against Cleveland. But I feel pretty confident that Tyler Huntley, nobody in like high stakes as I'm playing some single entry stuff for like, I'm looking at playing the spy or the 2-2-2 or something. I'm thinking about running Tyler Huntley by himself, and it makes me feel really, really weird.
And I think it's more viable also in a smaller field than it is large field, because a smaller field you don't need to be perfect. Whereas in if you're playing the largest field, you need to have generally the optimal lineup or close to the optimal lineup, and it's you don't need to be as perfect in a small field. So I think it's more viable just because again you're shooting for higher floor. You don't necessarily need to hit the full ceiling where typically I'm building for the largest field GPPs. You kind of need to hit that optimal, and then generally that's where you need to hope that he's bringing a pass catcher along with him. But yeah, in a smaller field I think it's certainly more viable to play both of these quarterbacks without any pass catchers.
Anything you're thinking about in terms of these quarterbacks we haven't covered?
No, I think we've covered it pretty well. They're both, good enough rushers. Yeah, and they both have positive leverage. Not much else to say about them.
Well, this would be normally the time that I give you guys an ad read or I say something important, but it's on the sheet as none. I get to just continue on talking about sports, which kind of gives me hope that I might have a chance to talk a little NBA for you folks as we get closer to that 6 p.m. What is it, Mountain Time that I'm in right now? But regardless, Pacific Time, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, it would be. I'm all out of sorts for different things. But yeah, looking at that opportunity for you guys to maybe help you out in the NBA streets. I'm looking at the board here right now. Jokic seems like a good play. How about that for information? Let's go to running back here for tonight's slate. And Najee Harris, your most expensive guy on the board. I think it makes all the sense and all the land going there. Earlier in the season, we were very concerned, very, very concerned about Jaylen Warren. That usage has been very limited at times. We're looking at very few snaps in week 14, week 16, and this is a healthy Jaylen Warren, which makes me think Najee Harris, bell cow season. Is that the way that you view him, and how do you want to utilize him in DFS tonight?
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the most recent game logs, the past 2 games in particular, week 15, Najee Harris had 24 carries, ran 7 routes. So, not as involved in the passing game as he was earlier in the year. But then week 16, he rushed 16 times, ran 23 routes, and had 9 targets. Yeah, Najee Harris has certainly been coming alive recently. I have a lot of interest in Najee Harris. Let me look at what the tools say as well. Yeah, actually negative leverage in the captain spot. That kind of surprises me how negative it is. But then I guess you look at his price tag, he's 10,600, a little bit more expensive than you'd like him to be. We've got Najee projected for 10.6% captain ownership, 4.9% chance of being optimal. So not great there. Neutral in the flex, 36.6% projected ownership, 36.5% chance of being optimal. Yeah, I've got some interest in Najee. Where's Baltimore in rush DVOA? They're typically, I feel like they've been kind of middle of the pack here. Let me find real quick. They are fourth in terms of rush DVOA. Okay, so it's kind of a tough spot for Najee in terms of the defense that he's facing. 12th in terms of pass DVOA. I guess that probably is kind of the reason that we're seeing some negative leverage here. Just not a great spot for Najee, but the volume has been there, and the volume is kind of the most important thing with running backs. 40 carries over the past 2 weeks, 9 targets last week. That's enough volume that I'm going to have some interest in Najee, but I prefer playing him in the flex just because of all that negative leverage we have in the captain spot.
Sad times, Neil. San Francisco wins 37-34. Stidham, after 3 straight rushes by Josh Jacobs, throws a pick targeting Adams. They run it back. Purdy nails it. They kick the 23-yard field goal. It's good. End of the game. No stats from the 49ers side, other than defense, of course, in the entire freaking overtime. That's so gross. What a bad run out.
That was good.
There it was. Tyler Zander coming in with the perfect timing on that. Just disgusting stuff, my friend.
So as we're talking about these runners, first of all, yeah, I saw that. I was pretty disappointed to see the lack of scoring. We did get a few more points out of Josh Jacobs there in overtime, so wasn't completely useless for us. That's helpful, but yeah, a little bit disappointing that it ended without one of our guys getting a touchdown or major points there. Continue talking about these Pittsburgh running backs. Actually, Jaylen Warren is still fairly. What you like that transition?
You're a pro, baby. You're a pro now. Look at you.
Well,
you graduated.
I pulled up Jaylen Warren's stats here. And I'm seeing he does have 17 carries over the past 2 weeks. So it's not like he's completely uninvolved out there. 33.8% of snaps.
It's drastically different when you just look at what we were expecting when they were both at full strength, where, Mike Tomlin had said that he had earned basically the opportunity to go 50-50 with him. And that is not the case anymore.
It was really interesting because everybody else was talking about it like, yeah, it looks like Jaylen Warren might be taking over. And then Jaylen Warren comes out and he's like, no, this is still Najee Harris's backfield. So clearly he did not think that he was taking over like the rest of us were kind of hoping he might. But Najee's been looking better too. So I think Najee's maybe earned himself that featured role. And, Jaylen Warren, he's a useful RB2 here, I would say. As far as RB2s go, like he's getting some run here. Maybe somebody you can also consider playing. I think he scored touchdowns. I feel like he scored a touchdown last week. We've got him optimal in the captain spot. We have him projected for 1.4% ownership in the captain spot, 0.7% chance of being optimal. So negative leverage there for Jaylen Warren. 12.7% projected ownership in the flex, 9.4% chance of being optimal. I still like him though. 3,200 for Jaylen Warren. I think he's one of the better backup running back options that we've had on Showdown. We've seen guys kind of with a similar floor and ceiling to Jaylen Warren who have been like 6,000 and getting, more ownership than he's getting recently. So I do actually have some interest in Jaylen Warren as well.
Yeah, Jaylen Warren, I think is just your change of pace, find a way to get different. He's 13.4% ownership in the utility compared to Najee. If he's the guy who gets the goal line carry, that's something you always say. It's like, I want to see the path, and like with a tight end at the goal line, if he ends up being the guy, Yahtzee, you're in really good shape. You're getting the ownership discount, and something happens to Najee. More than likely, just because I'm hand building, I very highly doubt I'm going to have any Harris and Warren lineups. I'll probably target one or two as I'm going along here with Warren absent Najee Harris. But for the most part, I think Najee kind of earned that role. But now as we move to the Baltimore side, this is kind of the apocalypse. Like, I hate trying to choose between these guys. We know that there's not really much of a passing game presence here for the Baltimore Ravens at the moment. They want to pound the football. They want to establish the run. They want to do all of those things. And we have J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards in this backfield. At their current ownerships, who do you prefer for tournaments tonight?
Let me look at what their ownerships are. We've got, J.K. Dobbins is just so much more involved in the passing. Man, he's 10,000. I did not realize how expensive J.K. Dobbins has gotten.
It's outrageous.
Man, Gus Edwards at 22%, J.K. Dobbins at 33%. I think I prefer Gus Edwards. He's not really involved in the passing game at all, which is a little bit tough on DraftKings. But he is he's always live to get that 100-yard bonus. I think he got to 99 yards last week on like 11 carries. He's just always been such an efficient runner. Yeah, he had 11 carries last week, 7 the week prior, 13 the week prior. So not getting as many carries as you'd like, but he's so much less expensive than J.K. Dobbins. I think I actually prefer Gus Edwards here. We've got positive leverage in the util on Gus Edwards. We're projecting him in the util for 22.3% ownership, 25% chance to be an optimal. So a little bit of positive leverage there. And then also in the captain spot, 3.6% projected ownership, 3.1% chance to be an optimal. That's fine as well. J.K. Dobbins, we actually have a little bit of negative leverage in the captain spot, 9.2% projected ownership, 6.5% chance to be an optimal. He's neutral in the util, 32% and 32%. Pulling up J.K. Dobbins' stats as well, because it feels like a very split backfield. The coach came out this week and said that neither of them are going to be limited at all. J.K. Dobbins, 12 and 13 carries the past 2 weeks, 15 the week before that. He's actually not as involved in the passing game as he had been earlier in the year. He's run a total of 5 routes the past 2 weeks. That's really surprising for me that J.K. Dobbins just been taken out of the passing game role. He's had 2 total targets the past 2 weeks. So he's not really involved in the passing game either. Yeah, I definitely prefer Gus Edwards at a cheaper price tag if you don't even get the PPR bonus with J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah, it's a little bit of weather too, and then quarterback issue and style of play. Like the times have been a change in absent Lamar Jackson for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we're on the same page here. We prefer Gus Edwards. It's going to be hard for J.K. Dobbins to really break the slate at his price tag. He's just, at 12, 13 carries, splitting the backfield. He's too expensive for his role.
Yeah, it's just a spot where I think I want to get to more Gus Edwards, and it doesn't feel good. It feels disgusting, and I just don't like a $10,000 J.K. Dobbins. Like, especially a $10,000 J.K. Dobbins, people are actively going out of their way to play a ton of. Like, I think it just becomes very easy for me to see the positive leverage, the reduced ownership on Gus Edwards, and just because he's been a beast. Like, he's been a beast in very limited workload so far here. You start extending it, could be problematic, but he had 8 yards per carry, 9.6 yards per carry last week. You saw what that floor can be. So I'm getting away from Dobbins. I'm going the Gus Edwards side, the Tyler Huntley side, and I'll just let it happen. I'll let J.K. Dobbins go for 150 and 2 touchdowns, and you guys can all enjoy that.
Yeah, same page. Glad
Justice Hill, Patrick Ricard, and Ricard, great show on Paramount Plus. My wife, she's done an amazing job with that show.
Oh yeah, your wife is involved with the Picard show. That's cool.
She is. So she does like all the movie premieres and the stuff like that, and just said, it's just such a fun. She's never been like a huge Star Wars, Star Trek nerd by any means for anything, but said that like Patrick Stewart and just working with these guys is just the coolest thing ever. So
yeah, that would be the coolest thing ever, working with Patrick Stewart.
I'll be in the premiere. I'll be at the premiere in February. Looking forward to that. My brother's coming out for it too.
That's awesome.
That'll be enjoyable. Good talk. Justice Hill, Patrick Ricard. Now that I've said that, he's definitely going to get in the box, right?
So I'm looking at Justice Hill. I don't think I'm likely to play. Maybe I'll look up Picard's stats as well. But Justice Hill, I'm just looking at the past 2 weeks. He's run a total of 12 routes. He has 1 carry, 1 target in each of the past 2 games. I guess you could play Justice Hill. What's the price tag here? We've got Justice Hill at 2,400, a little bit expensive. He's only projected for 5% ownership. You could go there. He could score a touchdown. I think a touchdown is live for Justice Hill. So at 5% ownership feels about efficient. That's probably about where I want to be. I don't want to be getting to 15, 20%. I'm probably just right with the field on Justice Hill. Patrick Ricard, I have not really been thinking about playing him, but I'm going to just look up his information just because now I kind of want to play him, knowing your connection with Star Trek.
Talked you into it.
Yeah.
See how easy that was?
It was very easy to talk me. You just have to have a wife who works with Patrick Stewart, and then I'll be interested in playing Patrick Ricard.
Just tells him where to sit at a premiere. That's she's not bossing him around.
Since week 1. Oop, he did have Ricard had 3 targets last week and the week prior to that. That's kind of interesting. I don't understand what I'm reading here, because I'm seeing 0 routes run and then 5 targets the past 2 weeks. Doesn't really make sense to me. But 5 targets is sort of interesting.
Yeah, it's gonna be something that I try to land on a couple of shares of. And again, it's a disturbing football game. We've seen him as at the fullback position be a stud from time to time. He's been a Pro Bowler for however long. He'll get on the field, almost always blocking, but I will try a couple. He is going to show up in a lineup or two for me. It's going to be gross. It's going to be gross.
I am looking at Pro Football Reference now, just trying to fact check this because that doesn't seem right. And it's showing 0 targets the past 3 weeks for Patrick Ricard. So make of that what you will. I'm seeing different places.
Yeah, I see 0 on DK in the box score too.
Okay, so
1 rushing attempt, and then 1 rushing attempt in the 14th, 15th. Again, it's got to be a goal line scenario, and it's the largest of large field tournaments if you want to burn $20 or whatever you want to do, $15 on today's slate.
Exactly right.
Yep, pretty much that. Let's move along, shall we? Anything else from running back for you?
No, I don't believe there are any other running backs. I mean, Derek Watt, kind of similar, just the fullback role, probably not somebody I'm too interested in playing. I think we've covered all of the really relevant running backs here.
All right. Well, here's what we're going to do. We're only at 73 likes. If we get over 200 likes, I will speed round NBA for 5 minutes. I will speed round it for you guys starting at, whenever we get up over 200 likes. As soon as that happens, I will speed round out 5 minutes. You guys can ask questions. You can do whatever you want. I will fire up NBA because I know a lot of you showed up. You guys wanted to talk NBA. I've got the #1 showdown NFL player on planet Earth that I'm working with. So we're definitely going to be focusing primarily on that. But I know DFS matters. I know the tools matter. I want you guys to be checking out all of the great stuff here at Stokastic. And in that spirit, if you will, I will give you a 5-minute speed round of NBA, and I will break down everything that I'm looking at there in terms of the boom bust tool, in terms of ownership, because it's a wild slate. Hi, Bobby Portis. How are you today? 100%. That'll be fun. But let's get to wide receiver here, shall we? I think that makes sense. Or, Jack, you know what? This is a good time to talk about No House Advantage, because not only do they have the NFL contests every single day, but they've got some great NBA offerings as well in the versus the house section, in the pick'em section. And I'm looking right now at the Sunday Night Football stuff that we have free projections for on the site. $10 to get in, $5K to first, less than half full, 47% full. That is such a ridiculous allotment. I can't even tell you. You need to take advantage right now. Use promo code Stokastic, get $100 first match deposit bonus. Yes, it went from 50 to 100. So if you guys deposit, 100, you're getting 100 there. You could get 20 lineups into a less than half full tournament right now. And overlay is the name of the game. It doesn't exist just about anywhere else in the DFS space right now besides our friends at No House Advantage. And with the free projections we have up on the site, you can easily, in 2 seconds, go up to the NFL tab, go to the free NFL DFS data, and you can look at the projections and optimal lineups. You could literally copy and paste a few of those near the top in terms of projection and have some positive EV going into that $10 contest. So pretty simple, pretty easy if you ask me. Use promo code Stokastic and check that out. And if you guys enjoy other sites as well, where it's a lot of props and looking at things of that nature, and you just want to put 2 props together, 2 that you really, really believe in the NBA streets or the NFL streets tonight, this is where you want to be doing it. You go to the versus the house and you get access. So again, $100 first match deposit bonus. You can up to 21x your money. You play 2, 3, 4, or 5 player props together, and you get an opportunity to make a bunch of cash. You've got 29.5 yards for the longest completion for Tyler Huntley. That seems a little bit high to me. I would have to cross-reference with some other things here as well. You've got Deontay Johnson there at 19.5 longest reception. Pretty interesting props. Some definitely nuanced props that exist at the bottom of that one. Definitely use everything we have over at Odd Shopper. Everywhere else you can get free stuff here from Stokastic, including that free lineups page. Go to No House Advantage and win yourself some money tonight. All right, how are we doing in terms of the likes here? How are we doing? I will find out. 154. See, that worked. I need over 200, and I will 5-minute speed round it. So I'm looking forward to it. But we jump to wide receiver, my boy, Deontay Johnson, sitting up there. I had a Rainmaker card of him. That was depressing that I got rid of that too early, because now they could actually make the playoffs and stuff. But whatever, such is life. He's by far my favorite wide receiver here when you're talking about Pittsburgh. And George Pickens, not that far away in terms of ownership, makes me feel pretty confident that I'll just take the volume of Deontay Johnson, hope it hits him in the hands, because God forbid he drops any more footballs. How you feel about Deontay on tonight's slate?
Yeah, I'm with you. If they're going to be coming in at similar ownership, I have more interest in Deontay Johnson. We have actually a little bit less ownership on George Pickens, so it's a closer call there, but they're about the same price tag. We've got Deontay Johnson coming in at 10.3% ownership in the captain spot, 10.9% chance to be an optimal, 40% ownership in the util, and 45% chance to be an optimal. Deontay Johnson is pretty clearly the alpha. I think people don't quite realize how much separation there is between these guys. Deontay Johnson, 17 targets in the past 2 weeks. He is clearly the favorite of these receivers. He runs routes on more than 95% of passing plays. But George Pickens has been coming on. He's actually the past 2 weeks, he's been over the 90% mark in terms of route participation on passing plays. He has 5 targets in each of the past 2 games. And I mean, he's great. You watch him play. I'm always impressed when I see George Pickens. He makes some incredible catches. But my preference is probably Deontay Johnson in a vacuum. Factoring in ownership, it is a little bit closer just because we have George Pickens projected for 6.5% captain ownership, 6.4% chance to be an optimal. So pretty neutral there. And then in the util, we've got him projected for 26% ownership, 27% chance to be an optimal. So a little bit of positive leverage. Deontay Johnson, clearly the higher floor of the two. I think they have probably the higher upside too, just because of the PPR. He's going to get more targets. He has, a chance to get 10 catches for 100 yards, but pretty close in terms of ceiling. I think, George Pickens could have a spike week. So I think I prefer Deontay in a vacuum, but with the ownership, it's pretty close with the ownership coming into play, 14% less owned for George Pickens. So a little bit close there, but those are the two guys that you're primarily looking at from the Steelers. Outside of those two, it's probably Steven Sims for me next in line. He has run routes on more than 60% of passing plays the past 2 weeks. He has only 3 targets in those 2 games, so that's not all that promising. But just knowing that he is out there running routes, he's going to be next in line. The next guy I have interest in for the Steelers. What do we have in terms of Steven Sims? We've got him projected for 12.9% ownership, 12.6% chance of being optimal in the util. In the captain spot, 0.8% projected ownership, 1.7% chance of being optimal. So I kind of like Steven Sims in the captain spot, seeing that positive leverage. He's pretty cheap, lets you do whatever you want with the rest of your lineup.
He does let you do whatever you want with the rest of your lineup. I was thinking about him quite a bit. Just $1,000. If I'm going to go to the bottom, he's probably my favorite sub 3K play. I can't imagine there's a better sub 3K play than Steven Sims. I always get a little worried about that though, because I think the ownership ends up coming in a little bit higher than we expect on certain guys like that. But I surely don't want Gunnar Olszewski. Shout out. He was with New England once upon a time. I remember that. But Miles Boykin, you're dead to me. Never come back.
Yeah, I think probably my favorite play sub 3K as well. Yeah, Isaiah Likely coming in at 12.3% ownership. Maybe somebody I would consider sub 3K there. Zach Gentry is out on the field a lot, not typically has not been all that involved in the passing game. So I think I'm probably with you.
This no house advantage overlay is just ridiculous. You got to get in that. Shout out to our sponsor one more time. I can't believe that I have to get some lineups in this. That's going to be my goal. I'm going to get NBA done, going to get NFL Showdown done, and I'm going to get a no house advantage. You need to do the same today. That's it.
So do we not have live before lock for NBA today? Is that what's going on?
We don't have NBA live.
Okay, I was very confused why we're talking so much about NBA. Okay, I get it now.
The chat's going nuts about it.
Yeah. Very upset.
Oshevsky, there you go. Yeah,
guys, just hit that like button, and Eric will talk about NBA. I'm not playing the slate. I haven't looked at this NBA slate, so
Neil, here's the game plan all along: is that I'm going to let you get your lineups in, for like 4 or 5 minutes, and I'll just talk NBA because I'm playing the slate. I might as well talk to people through the slate for a minute. Yep. And also, this is the Stokastic daily fantasy sports advice. There are multiple daily fantasy things going on. The NBA one gets a little short-circuited, and we are going to have NBA slates till June, whereas NFL has a shorter timeline. So that's where we're going to prioritize. But I want you to get your lineups in without any question. So I think as long as we get over 200 likes, we're almost there. I will speed round that at 5:55 my time. Yeah, so I'm in Mountain Time right now. So for all of 7:55 p.m. Eastern Time, as long as we're over 200, I'll fire it off.
Love it. Good play.
Cool. Anything else that you want to talk about from the Pittsburgh wide receivers?
No, I guess I haven't really given much thought to Gunnar Olszewski. It's clearly those 3 at the top for me. Let me look at, actually, I do kind of want to look up because, we've got a projection for Gunnar. It's not a high projection, but We have like a projection of 1.5. That typically indicates that we're expecting him to be somewhat involved in the offense. So I just want to look up what his routes run have looked like recently. In the most recent game, he ran 2 routes. The game before that, 5 routes. Game before that, 11, a little bit better there. But yeah, 7 total routes the past 2 weeks, 1 target. It's probably a fade for me. I believe he's also the punt returner, so you could do the double dip thing if you want to play the Pittsburgh defense with Gunnar Olszewski. But if he returns a kick, it's only 6 points. He doesn't get extra points for a catch or for an interception or anything like that. So it doesn't really do that much for you, the double dip there. But you could consider him. Seven routes run the past 2 weeks. Not a very strong option. Probably only for playing 150 lineups. Maybe get him in a few.
All right, 205. You ready, Neil? We're gonna fly. This is going to be super quick. And if you guys are here for NFL, I love you. You know that I'm going to give you all the information. I gave you all the goods today. I was able to, find a way to profit through the sledge. And obviously Tom Brady doubles. That was fortunate. One lineup to rule them all, one lineup to find them. But in the NBA streets, there's no doubt that Giannis Antetokounmpo being out is the most impactful news on this entire slate. You still get Bradley Beal, Jamal Murray that are out, so gigantic piece there. Aaron Gordon is in. That's kind of an interesting off-the-wall type tournament play. Haven't seen a lot of Aaron Gordon next to Jokic here. That whole Sacramento stint, Gordon was out for both of those spots. That's a guy I don't think anybody is going to click on. But you look at these starters, it's impossible for me not to play 100% Bobby Portis on this slate. Javon Carter absolutely slam dunks when you have absent Giannis Antetokounmpo and Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday this entire season. We're looking at usage north of 22%. That's just really good stuff from him. Gotta like the Portis-Lopez combination there. I think both of them very, very nice for tournaments. Lopez always kind of gets a little bit slept on in these kind of spots. But I'm looking at the Memphis side of this one, going up against Sacramento. Game environment, 239.5, and everybody is playing John Morant. And I get it, he's 9,900, but we have Dylan Brooks there, 5,400. I want to be clicking on that absent Desmond Bane. 5,400 looks really, really good to try to jam in a little bit of that. Jaren Jackson Jr. And then if you're looking to get really, really off the board in terms of some low-owned plays, just according to the Boom Bust tool, Bones Highland, no Jamal Murray. People aren't clicking on that as much as they should be here in the last couple of minutes. We've got Rui Hachimura, who's started to emerge and starting to get more minutes. I think he's going to start closing some of these basketball games. 28, 29 minutes the last 2. That's somebody that I really want to keep an eye on. And then I'm going way, way off the board here. David Roddy, somebody that is not getting any love, but he's a flat 3K. If that game gets wonky and I'm trying to get away from some Jamal Murray, why not take a shot at the flat 3K on him? Oh, and Daniel Gafford, 4,400. We know what he can get done from time to time there at the center spot. Now, playing some more minutes, have been starting here routinely, 25, 26 minutes his last 2. Fire that up. How'd I do?
You did great. You're killing it. NBA used to be my bread and butter. Like, it was my first love in DFS. Even last year, I played every single slate. This year, with doing content on top of everything else with NFL, I haven't really been playing NBA. And you just mentioned David Roddy. I've never even heard of this guy.
Yeah. So he's not good, but he is flat 3K and allows for me to play every stud that I want. And obviously Jokic, he's a piece that I'm not willing to sacrifice on any slate right now, because whenever Jamal Murray is on the floor, that usage goes back up and you just want him in your lineups.
All right. I like it.
If Jokic doesn't play well and if Portis doesn't play well, I'm okay losing on this slate with 100% of both.
Okay.
That's kind of the way that I'm approaching it.
I did play a little bit earlier in the year. Bobby Portis let me down, like in some of these smash spots. I know earlier in the year he was pretty big disappointment. Hopefully he can turn it around. And obviously you can't really, it's not predictive, the fact that he did poorly in these spots in the past.
All right. How'd I do, everybody? Hit the like button if you enjoyed speed round here, allowing my buddy Neil. That was an NBA slate in about 3 minutes here. Pat Connaughton could play too, but not somebody that you should be jamming in every single lineup. I think there's still a floor there. But we got some super chats. We've got one super chat to catch up on here. We got over 865 of you. Really, really appreciate it. Chris Albers, $2. Fave single game captain NFL. Also, Ingles in play. Yes, Joe Ingles still in play off the bench. Don't expect any kind of a crazy overhaul here in terms of minutes for him, but still somebody that I do like for the NBA slate. And then favorite single game captain NFL for you tonight, Neil.
So we're talking DraftKings?
DraftKings.com.
Single game captains. Probably, I mean, Huntley is the optimal the most of anybody in our sims, and he's also got positive leverage. So might be Huntley. I feel so much safer with my receiving options for Kenny Pickett that I might be more inclined to go to Kenny Pickett just because who he's throwing to a little bit more. I think that's actually where I'm going to go. I think I'm going to go with Kenny Pickett. How about you?
Kenny Pickett. All right. I like that a lot because in terms of he's not in any of the ones that I've hand built yet in the captain, but I have him in the captain of pretty much every thing that I'm doing there on Rainmaker. So I really hope he goes completely nuts. I'm with you. Let's see. My favorite right now, it's really hard for me to get away from Tyler Huntley, looking at all of the positive leverage going his direction. If that's going to be the case here, really hard for me not to be obsessed with getting to the top there. And now it's existing with Kenny Pickett as well. So I'm with you. I think they both make sense. And then seeing positive leverage on Deontay Johnson in the captain, even ever so slightly, 0.1%, whatever, I'll take it. I will play Deontay Johnson. He should be the guy who's targeted the most in this entire football game.
Right on.
Right on, people. Eric is the man. Ingles, yes. Ingles. We just talked about that. But we jump over to the wide receivers on the Baltimore side. Zoid Scoob, this isn't pretty. Rappy. DeMarcus Cousins. That was fun. DeMarcus Robinson. See, this truly is an NBA/NFL live before lock. Deshaun Jackson activated there. Sammy Watkins has had a cup of coffee there, and now he's out there. It is so hard to land on any of these guys. How do you go about building with these wide receivers on the Baltimore side?
You just put him in your lineup and pray, I guess. I don't know. I don't really want to play any of these guys. I think, Deshaun Jackson ran 6 total routes last week, which was a 35% route participation. So they have not been throwing the ball a lot for Baltimore. So it's a little bit hard to really want to play these guys. We know obviously Deshaun Jackson still has, I think, that slate breaking like single play that can pay off his salary. So I do have some interest in Deshaun Jackson. I don't understand what happened with DeMarcus Robinson. I'm wondering if I missed something here. He only ran 6 routes last week, 35% of passing plays he was out there. Prior to that, he had been, 70 plus percent of the time.
Weather.
But even regardless of weather, I mean, that's 35%.
Wasn't it the game that was blowing like 40 though? Wasn't it the Cleveland-Baltimore game?
Yeah, no. So yeah, weather certainly a factor. I'm not saying that weather's not a factor, but I just mean from a percentage standpoint. So not just like the raw number 6, but 35% of the plays is about half, less than half of what he had been running. So maybe it was a fluky thing. Maybe even on the passing plays, they were changing up their personnel because of the weather. So maybe that's all it was. But he's been, I would say, the alpha in terms of the wide receivers. I don't know if you call any of these guys really an alpha for Baltimore, but DeMarcus Robinson had been the most involved. I do have some interest in Deshaun Jackson. I guess 12% ownership is a little bit higher than I'd like it to be. Of course, then maybe was it Sammy Watkins coming in? Like, did they just really want to use Sammy Watkins? Is that the reason let me see how many routes he ran.
He has familiarity at least with the team, and then going to Green Bay, he was pretty upset about the way that he got injured. It was like a hamstring deal. He was getting a lot of usage early on, ended up being out for those 4 weeks, came back, didn't really have the same kind of burst, but he's schematically pretty capable of slotting into this offense immediately. Like, I think Sammy Watkins is the guy in terms of wide receivers that I'm actually taking shots on from the Baltimore side. I really don't want to be paying 6,800. Obviously, if DeMarcus Robinson catches a touchdown, he's been the most functional wide receiver here, but Deshaun Jackson, we know the big playability at times going back to, I mean, if it's 2006, sweet, then we're in good shape. Deshaun Jackson probably will smash. We've seen him even in the last couple of years be capable in showdowns. But Sammy Watkins, I feel pretty confident is the guy that I want to have the most of at their current ownerships.
Yeah, I mean, when you factor in ownership, it's certainly at least interesting. He came in his very first game with the team. He ran 6 routes. So he had the same route participation as did DeMarcus Robinson in that game. Man, he has not looked good this year. He's a guy that I had a ton of in best ball. So I'm expecting him to go off now that I don't have him in any lineups. But yeah, so ran 6 routes. He did have 1 reception in that game. So that's cool. Good for him, I guess. He 1 reception for 40 yards in that game against Atlanta. Yeah, I guess he's playable. I would expect his routes run to go up in this game. I mean, that being his first game already running 6 routes, I would expect that he's going to get more involved over time, but not like I have a ton of confidence in Sammy Watkins. I still think that DeMarcus Robinson probably the highest floor, but of course he also the most expensive. 17% ownership, probably reasonable for DeMarcus Robinson. For me, it's close between Deshaun Jackson and Sammy Watkins. I feel like Deshaun Jackson has is likelier to break to pay off his salary with a single play than Sammy Watkins is, just because he's a lot faster than Sammy Watkins. So I think that probably Deshaun Jackson, my second favorite, assuming that they're going to continue being, not a ton of volume. I feel like Sammy Watkins kind of needs a little bit more volume than Deshaun Jackson does to pay off his salary. But I mean, he had a 40-yard reception last week, so maybe he can pay it off with one 40-yard play if he can do that again. But I think my preference here is, I think Marcus Robinson probably my favorite, followed by Deshaun Jackson. But I do understand your Sammy Watkins love. He is coming in at under 9% ownership, so that does give me some interest, with the assumption that he's going to be more involved this week. He's going to continue to be more involved, and he's getting low ownership. Just the unknown. You kind of got to take advantage of these unknowns, and he's a little bit of an unknown. So yeah, I have some interest in Sammy Watkins as well.
He's a bit of an unknown, no doubt about it. Like, I'm not going to deny that in any way, shape, or form. James Proche, is he active? I had to double check that, because that was somebody that was popping up for me a little bit earlier. Doesn't look like he is. So there you go. Wanted to double check that. We have no projection next to his name. That makes it difficult to score fantasy points. Have you heard that?
Yeah, I have not had success when I play inactive players.
Doesn't go very well. Well, let's go to the tight end, where I think there's a lot to talk about, and we're making great time. You guys have already hit the like button. Phenomenal stuff. Really appreciate you guys. Pat Fryermuth, the Friar from the Shire, if you will. I just made that up now. How are we feeling about Pat Fryermuth, who has been a tight end that's been pretty reliable on the last couple of weeks in terms of my DFS lineups? How do we feel about him on tonight's showdown?
First, I just want to say that James Proche was not on the inactives list, so I'm a little bit lost here. What happened?
We have a zero projection next to
we
his
do
name
have
right
the
now,
zero projection with James Proche. Is it just that he has not been playing? Let me just double check. Make sure.
This is why you're here.
Because every once in a while, we want to make sure that we don't often have errors. I'm assuming it's not an error, but you just want to double check these things. Yeah, so he didn't play a single snap in week 16, or didn't run a single route, at least. Yeah, I think he played 0 snaps. The week prior to that, he ran 2 routes. The week prior to that, 3 routes. So I think it's just a matter of he wasn't involved. The first game they had Sammy Watkins, James Proche ran 0 routes. But who knows? That was also, as you said, it's a weather game.
As James Proche is there. Andy Isabella got called up as well. He's at 200. Right. He's active, but he didn't run any routes. Maybe we just have 0 projections because on 3 routes, maybe we just don't put fantasy points next to their name. But Proche and Isabella, it looks like, are both active.
Yeah, so they're active. Just muddies things up, really. Neither of these guys are guys that I really want to play, but we've got James Proche projected for 1.6% ownership, Andy Isabella at 0.1% ownership. Maybe they're playable. I don't usually really wade into these guys that have 0 projections unless I have good reason to. And I don't think that these guys are quite at that level that I want to. The only reason I'm really thinking about it is because we only have projections for 3 Ravens receivers. So then typically, I mean, usually you have projections for at least 4 receivers, 5 receivers from a team. We only have projections for 3, which makes me think, one of these guys gets hurt. DeMarcus Robinson, Deshaun Jackson, Sammy Watkins, next man up has got to be one of these guys. It's just hard to really know which one it's going to be, and they don't pass it that much anyway. So as far as zero projection guys go, I think James Proche and Andy Isabella are more playable than we typically see. I'm more likely to go to these guys as a wide receiver 4 and 5 than it would be a wide receiver 6 or 7 with a 0 projection. But can't say with any confidence which of these guys if either of these guys is going to see the field, and if somebody does get hurt in front of them, which one of them it'll be. So I don't think I'm going there, but in a 150 set, I think they are guys you can at least consider. The Muth is always a guy that I love. 7,200. He's just he's a very talented young tight end. I'm looking him up in our tools because I want to see what the ownership is. 6% captain ownership for Fryermuth. That definitely does interest me. 6% captain ownership. We have him optimal 6.4% of the time. A little bit of negative leverage in the utility. 26% projected ownership. 25% chance of being optimal. But anytime I can get Pat Fryermuth at relatively low ownership, I do have some interest. And I believe he is targeted generally more by Kenny Pickett then I forget who the quarterback was who came in a couple games ago. He wasn't targeted like at all. And I think that's just the quarterbacks. And I think he's more likely to be targeted when Kenny Pickett is in there at quarterback. So, and people overlook that. If you're watching the box score, you don't really factor in, not everybody will factor in who the quarterback was. Yeah, he saw 0 targets in week 15 when the Steelers had, was it Trubisky came back? I forget who was quarterback that game.
Yep.
But then week 16, we get Kenny Pickett back and he sees 8 targets, catches 7 balls. Yeah, actually, I'm talking myself into it more. I mean, I don't have to talk myself into it. I always want to play some Pat Freiermuth on a showdown slate, but I'm liking him more and more just because you look at the game, like he had 0 targets 2 games ago. Maybe that drives some people away, but he's better with Kenny Pickett out there. So I do have a lot of interest in Pat Freiermuth.
Yeah, I think Pat Freiermuth is a fantastical play. I think we can definitely be getting to a little bit of the Muth. I think just the target, the volumes, everything seems to be lining up to take some shots. Also taking some shots on Zach Gentry. He's cheap, 600. I like getting to him more than I like these $200 type wide receivers. So again, 600 for DK purposes over there. On FanDuel, I want to give some FanDuel love out there too as well. It's tough for me to land on anybody other than like a Pat Freiermuth there. He's $11K. Mark Andrews is only $500 more. And then J.K. Dobbins is only $1,000 more. Give me the Muth at a reduced amount of negative leverage compared to both of those players.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like Pat Freiermuth quite a bit. My mouse seems to be breaking just as I'm trying to look this up, but I want to see what the ownership, what is the ownership we have on Pat Freiermuth on FanDuel?
On FanDuel right now, Pat Freiermuth. So I just took it off there for a second because I was going to the Baltimore side. Negative 0.4% leverage right now, 16.4% optimal, and ownership is currently 16.9%. So Nobody's playing him compared to the other two, Andrews and Dobbins.
Yeah, but sometimes you see these guys like Pat Freiermuth is kind of in that range that people sometimes don't think about. Yeah. Sometimes you see these tight ends get like 5% ownership. If we were going to see that, I was going to be all in. But yeah, if he's getting teens ownership, that's kind of like, that's probably about where I want to be also.
Yeah, it is kind of what I'm thinking too. Let me just finish this up here. All right, I got it covered on my end. Awesome. We jump to the Baltimore side, which is very intriguing because Mark Andrews, I'd call him a disappointment this entire season, and some of it his fault, some of it not. It's been a little bit of a strange year. If you drafted him, probably not the best ball scenario that you've ever had in your entire life, that's for sure. But I'm looking at him at 8,800 on the DraftKings slate. It makes some sense to be getting there, but the name recognition I think is going to steam him up, and that's why I'm talking about the FanDuel aspect of it, where give me Pat Freiermuth just based on what their roles have been of late and how more likely Pittsburgh is to want to actually throw the football and actively try to do that. How do you feel about Mark Andrews on tonight's slate?
Yeah, he's been a huge disappointment. I've been wanting to play him. I have played him some in DFS, and he's just continued to disappoint. You're right. The name recognition is there. And especially when, if you want to play the Baltimore side of this game, you look at the wide receivers, there's nobody you want to play. So I think that he could get even more steam just because he's the only name that you see and feel any kind of confidence in. It is kind of a hard fade for me just looking at his routes, his targets, the past several games. I mean, if you look through his last like 8 games, he has his lowest target total is 5 in, I guess, the last 7 games. He did have 8 games ago, he had only 2 targets, but the past 7 games, the lowest number of targets he's gotten is 5, which did happen in week 16. He only had 5 targets against Atlanta. But yeah, I don't know. He's been so bad this year. He's only caught a total of, 8, 12, 16 balls over the past 5 weeks. Just not getting it done out there. You got to play somebody. So maybe I have a little bit of interest in Mark Andrews, but I want to look at what we have for projected ownership because, so we've got him actually positive leverage on Mark Andrews, 8.9% captain ownership, 9% chance of being optimal, 36% util ownership, 39% chance of being optimal. So some interest in Mark Andrews. I am concerned that the ownership is going to be even higher because, as you said, he's a name you recognize in a game that we don't have that many names here that anybody really wants to play. I mean, Mark Andrews, Deontay Johnson, maybe George Pickens. I don't know. Do people want to play J.K. Dobbins? There's not a lot of names here that people are really dying to play. So I think that we could see Mark Andrews get a little bit more steam than we're expecting. But still some interest at 8,800. He is, I think, clearly the best receiver still for the Ravens. So little bit of interest, especially when I see the positive leverage here. But I prefer in a vacuum, not in a vacuum. When you factor in ownership price, I do prefer Freiermuth to Andrews, but I still have some interest in Andrews.
I'm on board with you. And this isn't like a classic groupthink thing. I'm not trying to talk Neil into anything there. It's just simply looking at the tools, being able to make rational decisions. And I think Pat Freiermuth, based on what we've seen the last couple of weeks, I think he's just a better play straight up than Mark Andrews. And that's a weird thing to say. In the year of our Lord 2023. Look at that. Second time I've gotten to do that today. That's nice fun. Job. Thank you. We got to talk about kickers and defense, though. They kind of deserve their own little thing. Actually, Isaiah Likely, very good at catching footballs. Is he going to be out there enough? You tell me.
Yeah, I think so. Isaiah Likely, generally, it is killing me right now to not have my mouse. I'm so much slower as I'm trying to look things up. Give me 1 second here.
You'll be okay. You'll be okay. I'll give you a second.
No, I'm doing just fine. I don't usually use my laptop as a laptop. I feel like a lot of people are better at using the laptop that way. I always have it set up with like a mouse and a screen, all this stuff. Yeah, so Isaiah Likely, only 7 routes run last week, but that was 41% route participation. 18 routes run the week prior in week 15 against Cleveland, 55% route participation rate. I like that a lot better. And the week prior to that, 47%. So he is out there. He's had 5 targets the past 2 weeks, 1 in the red zone. I do have some interest in Isaiah Likely as a relatively low owned option, and I want to double check that is true. What's his projected ownership? We've got Isaiah Likely for 12% ownership. That's the hard thing. It's like, that seems about reasonable. Like 12%, like that. I don't really want to be well above the field on that. It's people are getting better at this showdown thing. He does look a little bit under-owned in the captain spot. So maybe that's a spot where you can go, similar to Steven Sims. These cheaper guys, maybe it's just because, you don't necessarily need the cheaper guys because there's not as many expensive guys as you want to go to, but 0.9% captain ownership, 1.9% chance to be an optimal. So I like him a lot there in the captain spot. And I think he's a fine play as well in the utility spot. 12% seems about right.
All right. We go to kicker. Justin Tucker, Chris Boswell. One is identically owned to the other in our tools right now. It is pretty wild to see them both there. Justin Tucker, name recognition. He's at home. He's the slightly favored football team. Give me Justin Tucker straight up in a vacuum, but find that hard to believe it might actually end up being the thing when they're $200 away in DK Showdown. Tell me, Neil, am I crazy? Is this actually going to be just about identical ownership for both Tucker and Boswell?
I mean, Boswell kind of, as far as kickers go, I mean, Justin Tucker is probably the top of the list, but Chris Boswell's, a better known kicker as well. He's been in the league for forever. Just a little bit cheaper. Yeah, I think I'm with you, Justin Tucker. My preference in a vacuum, he is maybe, one of the best kickers of all time, projecting for 2.3% ownership in the captain spot, 4.5% chance to be an optimal. That is really nice leverage in the captain spot on Justin Tucker. And we have a little bit of positive leverage in the util as well. 22% ownership, 23% chance to be an optimal. It's hard for me to ever really want to take huge stands on kickers when they are getting what appears to be reasonable ownership. I think the field's getting it about right. But as I said, it looks like he's a little bit under-owned in the captain spot. So maybe that's a spot where you can find a little bit of leverage, get a little bit different. A lot of these cheaper guys are just going a little bit low-owned. So yeah, you can play Justin Tucker in the captain spot. Chris Boswell also has some positive leverage in the captain spot, 1.2% projected ownership, 2.4% chance of being optimal. Actually, negative leverage on Boswell. That kind of surprised me to see that. Negative leverage in the util, 17% projected ownership, 15% chance of being optimal, but still certainly playable. That's probably about how much I want to play Chris Boswell, like right somewhere in the teens. Not going to be in the first lineup I make, but he'd probably be in the first 10 lineups I make somewhere.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Boswell and Tucker, both fantastic plays. Kickers have just been smashing. This is a low total game, so every point matters. Every opportunity matters. I think they really make sense to get to, even if, 7.5, lower projection than you might see in some other spots for sure. But 49 degrees, perfect weather, no wind whatsoever. 2 teams that want to run the ball more than anything else. So there you go. Let's go to the defensive side of this one. And that's where I think we run into a little bit of an issue, because people see a 35.5 total. And right now in our tools, it looks as though defense, not something that you should be getting away from necessarily, considering positive leverage in the optimal or in terms of the utility for both the Steelers and the Ravens. Does that hold up, Neil? Because it seems like they're going to be very, very popular tonight.
They're going to be popular. They should be popular. These are bad offenses, inexperienced quarterbacks. I think there's a reason that people want to play the kickers, and it makes some sense. We have positive leverage. Man, we have the Ravens optimal in the util 30.5% of the time. That is nuts. You don't see that all that often with defenses, especially a $5,000 defense. That's you should play yourself some Ravens.
Good.
We actually have positive leverage, 25% projected ownership. As I said, 30.5% chance to be an optimal. The Ravens defense looks great. A little bit of negative leverage in the captain spot, 6.5% projected ownership, 6.1% chance to be an optimal. Still certainly playable. That's not so much negative leverage is going to drive me away from them. But yeah, the Ravens actually look under owned at 25, over 30% overall ownership on the Ravens, and they're under owned there. So they look great. The Steelers also look pretty neutral, actually. A little bit of negative leverage in the captain spot, 5.3% ownership, 4.8% chance to be an optimal, and then a little bit of positive leverage in the util, 21.2% ownership, 23% chance of being optimal. What can you say? These are good defenses against inexperienced quarterbacks in a low total game. It makes sense that people want to play the defenses, and it makes sense that we see some positive leverage as well.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Actually getting to play a defense tonight. Yay, Ravens. Thank you. Feel like I've been fading defenses pretty routinely. I'm going to get to the Ravens. I'll get to a little bit of Steelers, but not nearly as much as I'm getting to this Ravens team. They're just freaking good. And pretty much by any means, I want to get myself to a little bit more of them. Everything's filled up over here. You know where it's not? No house advantage. Still overlaid to be had over there. Want to give them a shout out in the last 3 minutes. If you guys want to put together some quick lineups, that is the spot to go do it. It's up to 80% full. People did a fantastic job getting into that one tonight. But still, that is overlay. That is an opportunity to get it in good tonight at no house advantage. But Neil, you got all your lineups in, my friend?
I am working on my FanDuel lineups right now. As I said, slow down a little bit with the lack of a mouse. But I think I'm at least going to get a set in right now.
You're in a Minneapolis hurricane right now. There's a little bobble.
All right, I got a lineup set in. Probably not my best lineups. I didn't really just want to get something in there. But at least I have different lineups, so that's good. It's not going to be a train for me.
All that matters is that you're not running a dummy, because then I would feel like a dummy and it wouldn't feel very good. But favorite captain play on DraftKings tonight?
I mean, I like all those kind of inexpensive guys that look really good. I think Justin Tucker, got to probably say Justin Tucker would be my favorite, coming in with some positive leverage there. But you see Isaiah Likely, Steven Sims, both look good. Talking about the largest field GPP, of course, with these guys, that's where you want to be playing. These guys are going to be under owned. I think those are some of my favorites here. Looking at the guys who are likelier to hit, obviously both of the quarterbacks have rushing upside. So I do like both Huntley and Pickett as well. I kind of want to play some Gus Edwards just because he's getting relatively low ownership. We actually have negative leverage on Gus Edwards, but he's inexpensive enough that you can play him in captain and still make a really nice lineup. So I do have some interest in Gus Edwards as well. How about you? Who are your favorite captains?
Pat Freiermuth, Deontay Johnson.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah, those are the two that I have the most of. And Tyler Huntley on the Baltimore side. Those are the three that I'm cheering for. But I'm cheering for all of you there in chat, hitting the like button on the way out for some good karma. I'm cheering for all of you guys to take it home. So definitely do that. And thank you so much to Neil. Fantastic show per usual. I'll be back in LA tomorrow, so I'll be out of this setup. Everything's been great here, though. Wi-Fi's lovely. Everything's lovely. Tyler Zander, also lovely. Doing a great job producing this show. I'm going to go break down 11 games in the NBA Street for tomorrow. So there we go. I'm off to that. But Neil, any final words for the people now that we're at lock?
Good luck. Let's make some money.
Good luck. Let's make some money. I like that. I have nothing to add to that. I'm Eric Lindquist. Bye. Let's go make some money.